okay?
Yeah, you're good.
All right,
Yeah,
perfect.
this is your mic for the room.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Melendez. I moved to Tallahassee 6 years ago to purchase a business. To purchase a wholesale distribution company here in Tallahassee. We service North Florida and South Georgia, over 1,200 customers with 3,000 SKUs. My warehouse is in Capitol Circle Southwest. And basically, it was an 18-year-old company that I bought 6 years ago and had to completely reinvent it. So it's exactly like having a startup. And I had a startup in San Francisco, which is where I learned a lot of my startup lessons. But I'm actually going to begin today with a story about my dad. I grew up with an entrepreneurial father, which was awesome at times and then crazy at times. So I just learned these really invaluable lessons that I really love to share, because the whole point of in the startup world, is all this excitement and people have ideas and we want to change the world. But, are these ideas, is the value transparent, right? Is all the value creation that we're trying to get across, is it transparent? Will it become adopted, used? Will it create that value that we think it'll create? It's really, really, really difficult thing to do. So I was a young little Anna in Mexico City, and my father is an engineer, and he worked for an engineering company, and he was their marketing director. So imagine this guy is at an engineering company, but he's the marketing director. I mean, my dad's a visionary. He has left right brain. He is so, he can just really see trends and patterns. And so he's working for this engineering company, and they decide to move him to Columbus, Ohio. So here I am, 7 years old. We're moving to Columbus, Ohio. I had never seen snow before. I was like, okay. And ever since I was young, my father always taught me everything that he knew about business. And so he told me, okay, so he worked for ABB, which is a Sea Brown Bovary. It's a Swiss company. And it's a massive, massive engineering company. They have a division that, when you're in the airport, someone has to figure out how all the airflow and the AC systems and everything, Sea Brown Bovary. They have a division, pulp and paper division, that's the ABB. And so my dad was in the pulp and paper division. So again, super talented, young executive. And he's like, yeah, I'm selling these pulp and paper machines. Like, what? So he would tell me these stories when I was little. He's like, yeah, I have to sell this huge machine. I'm like, what? That makes paper. I'm like, okay. He's like, those little notebooks you have, the Mead notebooks? I'm going today to Mead to present to Mead that they should buy this new machine because their old machine really sucks. And they don't know that, right? They think they have X amount of output, and they're like, oh, we're making money. But they don't know that they're losing money and they really need this machine. So he learned a lot of valuable lessons from ABB. And he's like, okay, I have this whole sales force. How am I going to create value creation? So he's like, okay, usually marketing directors or sales forces, they know technical value, right? They can explain the technical parts to it, or they know operational value. This is how it's going to enhance your operations. But the main theme of my talk today in value creation is the finance part. Very few people are comfortable with the economic value creation of things. And this is the core of any type of business across any type of industry, is making money. And how do you make money? Through finance. And these are very, very tough pills that we have to swallow, but this is reality. And so in the entrepreneurial world, you have dreamers. We are dreamers or strategists. Again, we want to save the world. We want to enhance this and that. But at the end of the day, we have to come down to earth and really look at the financial part. Look at your business model, look at your revenue buckets, look at the costs and just double them. Because there's so many unforeseen things that happen. So back to my dad's story. You know, he's selling these machines and he's like, well, dang, I can't close these orders. Why? You know, I have all these marketing tools. I have all this stuff I'm showing to Mead and I can't close the orders. So he sits down and again, he's a visionary. He's like, what talks? Money talks. How can I get through them? Transparent value. I'm gonna sit down and look at every single financial metric and schema and start doing some projections. So he said, okay, and this is in the 80s, by the way, before ROI was a buzzword and everyone's like, oh yeah, what's your return on investment, blah, 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 blah. This is in the 80s. And he was sitting down looking at return on investment, economic value added, anything, internal rate of return, any kind of financial metric tied to this machine that he could show me and say, listen, so in school they teach you, cost benefit this, all these analyses. You have to have your total cost of ownership, what are your costs, your total benefit of ownership, what are the benefits. But he actually coined phrase TRO, which is total risk of ownership. So he would go and say, listen, Mead, I looked at these assumptions here about your machine and what value is not being created, and this is a value that this new machine is going to make. And it's a lot more complicated than that, but overall, it's looking at the value creation and showing that, making that transparent to the purchaser. So they can say, oh, I need this. Because Ruben showed me that every month that I have a new machine, I'm losing $100,000 worth of value. I should buy this new machine. Now there's a justification. And so these are really, really early lessons that I learned. And the big thing is, he would sit me down and say, okay, Anna, how do you run a business? How do you sustain, even before scaling, how do you just sustain, right? You need to make your revenue. You have your revenue and your costs. Simple, right? You can increase your revenue or you can decrease your costs. Because at the end of the day, what do you need? You need to make a profit, right? You have to make a profit in order to keep going. You could break even, but you have to keep going, right? You have to make a profit. And I said, yeah, okay, no problem. He's like, no, there's a whole other world, okay? So this is the tangible world. The tangible world is a world where you see formulas and they're straightforward and that's it. But what are we? We're humans, right? So humans, we have a whole other thing that happens when you put the human factor into it. So this is the intangible world. So whenever you look at things in business, not only do you need your tangibles, but your intangibles. So he said, okay, Anna, my whole methodology is four-pronged based on these 4 prongs. It's looking at your revenue, you either increase your revenue or your costs, you decrease your costs. But he said, what if you have an employee that is doing something proactively and they're helping you protect your revenue? Does that have a value? Well, yeah. But how do I calculate it? There's a way. There's a way to calculate these intangibles. It's not as clear cut, but this is the art of a business. If business was a simple formula, everyone would be a multimillionaire. But business is an art form. And so these are the things when you're having your startup that are really, really interesting and really important for you to be cognizant of, that things aren't just cut straight to the point in business. There's a whole art form to it. And so on the cost side, if you have an employee that's proactively doing something to help you avoid costs, that's awesome, right? There's a value to it, right? How do you capture it and how do you put a formula to it? So he was able to create this methodology that was awesome. And so I grew up learning about, Monte Carlo simulations and all these probabilities and all these formulas. But then he also taught me a lot of lessons in business that translate into life, about people, about how you treat your employees, about how you carry yourself as a person, about how you build relationships with all your vendors. And the issue is with a lot of these startups is they want to see, you have the light of the tunnel, you want the shiny star right away. But it takes a lot of patience, perseverance, long-term planning, and being, like I said, realistic in order to get to that point. And in order to get to that point, you know, and I mentor younger people and I always tell them, it's okay, you know, did you take a finance class in school? Did you take math at school? Yes. Did you take this in high school? Yeah. You know, if you went to a technical school or college, have you studied financial statement? Yes. And the big thing is there's a really, really big difference between studying what an income statement looks like with all your positives and your negatives and a balance sheet and living through financial statements and living them and learning these lessons. So the most important thing when you have a startup is not really your idea, right? Your idea could be great, but the monetization part of it, you have to be so realistic about how you're going to make money. And so all of that really has to be realistically ironed out in what your projected parts of your financial statements will be. And so I tell people, a lot of people don't feel comfortable with learning and don't feel comfortable with the numbers. And the best way is through examples. And so I can study income statements and balance sheets all day. And you can do that too. It doesn't mean anything, right? Numbers need context. You could have a beautiful income statement, beautiful balance sheet, and it could be a company that's failing, but you think they're not failing, but they're failing because there's some context behind it. Because maybe that's an income statement that looks great this month, but there's other factors that you don't see that are coming in the next quarter that could hurt that company. So it's really important to know how to look at your numbers in your startup and how to be realistic, how to look at the short term versus the long term and really have a plan. And the most important really is having mentors. You know, there's certain things you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You don't want to have all these horrible things happen to you because it's really, really hard. And even if I bought a company that was already successful, I went through really, really hard mistakes I had to get through because it was just like having a startup. And so the big thing is if you have mentors, they can tell you, like I told you the story about my dad. I could tell you a million stories about A&E Wholesale and all the things we did wrong. All these stories have to be really ingrained in your brain so that you can take from those stories and look at your business and say, oh my God, I'm on the path to that. How do I not go on the path to death? And this is an exercise that I do a lot with these entrepreneurial younger folks is to write your obituary. You know, if your company, let's say, you know, my name's on, but I have A&E Wholesale. If A&E Wholesale was a person and A&E Wholesale was to die tomorrow, next month, in a year, why would it die? Oh, customers keep telling us that our phone system is messed up and it's hard to get through to customer care. What are we doing? Are we ignoring it? We're losing customers? How can we relieve those pain points and go back and say, oh my gosh, people are giving us these nuggets of gold, but we're not doing anything. So it's really, really important for you to have these examples, mentors, be realistic about what you're doing in your company and really, like I said, it's awesome to dream, but just be realistic. And sometimes, you know, my dad has been through a lot of different businesses. He had to pull the plug and say, this is just not a scalable model. And so model creation, all of that is really important. But again, you have to make that effort. You can get so stuck in living your world and in your mindset of what you're doing and getting that tunnel vision and just being like, I know I can grow, when you could be also doing other things. One of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life was interviewing with McKinsey. If you don't know who McKinsey consultants are or who McKinsey is, please look them up. They are like, you know the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise? I mean, this is like when Fortune 50 companies don't know what to do, their backbone is McKinsey. They're like, hey, I need a dude that's an expert in strategic pricing or strategic cost frameworks, and they got a guy. So there's a book. So I interviewed with McKinsey, and it changed my life. It changed not just my life professionally, but even personally, because it teaches you how to rewire your brain and how you think and how you solve issues, not just large fundamental business, but also smaller issues in your life. And so there's a couple interview books. So the way that McKinsey interviews is they sit you down and they give you a business problem. They call them business cases, but it really is just a business problem. So this company it's a problem, right? So they want to see your thought. How are you thinking about solving these problems? So they're like, okay, so you live in Hawaii and you have a little surf shop and you sell these little surfboards, but you haven't been growing, you're not really that profitable. What are you going to do to grow your business? So and part of this McKinsey interview process, they teach you about decision tree making, how to start breaking problems down and look at the decision trees and start fine tuning your process of your thinking. So you say, okay, the population of the United States, let's say it's 350,000. Out of 350,000 people, these many people live in Hawaii. Out of the people that live in Hawaii, this many people can have access to my surf shop. Out of those people, there's the X amount are women, Y are men, Z are children. Oh my God, I could sell a line of surfing wear. But then how much would I need? What would be my cost? Do I need distribution? All of this type of thinking holistically about your business is extremely important because there are so many touch points. It's not just your product or your service, right? You have your marketing, you have your operations, then you have layer all the long-term planning. So when you look at value creation, value creation is such a broad term, right? So you really have to define it. And the most important, like I said, is looking at the financial part of value creation. How can you make an economic value creation model that is clear and that is profitable, right? And then in the long term, having, you can have a $100 million business and be in the red, right? If you're not managing your costs. And you can have, let's say, a $1 million business making $200,000 a year and you're super happy with that. So a lot of the value creation and what you want, how you define value creation is up to you. What are your goals? What do you define as success? Do you want to make this amount of revenue or do you really want to invest? So what I did with A&E, I said, I'm going to take a 10-year as a BA loan. So I know I'm going to be highly leveraged and have a ton of debt. So I was realistic about it. I'm like, I'm not going to make that much money until I paid down my debt. But that's a 10-year sacrifice that I had to make in order to actually I have 4 more years to go. 4 more years to go. But I think that's a lot of the misconception that startups are sexy, which they are, but it's really, really, really difficult because if you look at overall, even just general businesses that have been successful, and look at the business model. Look at taxis. All of a sudden, boom, Uber. All of a sudden, boom. So a change here, a change there. You always, if you don't know much about game theory also, game theory is really awesome, really fascinating, really always looking at your competitive landscape and just start thinking 5 chess moves ahead. Pre-COVID, I wrote my obituary for A&E. Said if A&E was gonna die, what would happen? And part of it was we buy a lot of inventory from Costco, believe it or not. Costco has a huge side to their sales that is for commercial businesses. And so we were buying like $100,000 a week from Costco. And I said, what happens if all of a sudden Costco's like, see you later, Anna. We're not gonna sell any Swisher Sweets anymore. Well, I'm kind of screwed, right? So since the beginning, again, all this, you look at the risk too. You look at game theory, you look at your numbers, you look at possibilities. I said, crap, what happens if Costco completely discontinues cigars? So I started planting these seeds with different, I found a distributor in Tampa. I found one in West Palm. I went physically, introduced myself, showed not, and the big thing is, no one is going to fight for you. I mean, hopefully your employees will, but at the end of the day, you have to do it for yourself. You have to be the face of your company. So, all these relationships, I went to Tampa, like I was telling you, I went to West Palm, said, hi, my name is Anna. I showed them I have a 10,500 square foot warehouse. I'm growing. I delivered to all the gas stations. I delivered to all the convenience stores, all the liquor stores, and this is what I'm trying to do. And when people hear your story and believe in you, they try to help you. You cannot do it alone. You can't. And if you're a control freak, like a lot of us, we have our startup, we're awesome, I want to do it this way. You have to have that balance of being open to help, being open to your mentors, being open to your advisory board. And so what happened during COVID, and even, okay, let's step back. Before COVID, Costco was like, hey, Anna, we have a new GM. And I'm like, oh, great. The old GM loved me, knew us, we had a relationship, and he specially stocked items for me. Now, my game theory, all these things that I was like, what if this happens? What if this happens? Is panning out, is becoming a reality. This new GM from Seattle comes to Florida with all his eco, which I love eco stuff, but he's like, no more cigars. I don't know about these cigars. And I'm like, oh crap. Now they're dwindling their inventory. Now I can't have access to these things. I'm like, do you know we have fishermen and hunters, this is Florida. He didn't care, right? He had a completely different vision for this Costco. And please, if you ever meet him, do not tell him that I told you. Just kidding. He's a great guy. He's a very great guy. He comes from a long line of Costco corporate people. But, this is the realist part, right? Not everyone is going to understand or be with your vision. So you have to plan for it. So whenever that happened, I went to other sources and built the relationships. And during COVID, as we all know, we had a massive, massive impact to the supply chain. And we had all sorts of supply chain problems. But what do I have to do? All the gas stations are open. You guys need gas. But not only that, you guys are like, oh my God, I'm scared to go into the Walmart because there's people, whatever. I'm just gonna pick up some candy at the gas station. So our sales shot up, but so did the demand. And so the supply was really, really short. And so these people in Tampa, all these people that I created these relationships over the past 6 years, they have a lot of customers. Why would they choose me? They have customers that are 10 times bigger than me. And when I was trying to get product for all you guys in the gas station picking up your candy and your chocolate, it was because I created these long-term relationships. And I had distributors from all over. Even we get our candy from a distributor in the Bronx, New York. They're awesome. So even then, all these different suppliers, because of our relationships, they didn't have to give us the product. They chose to. They prioritized A&E Wholesale over other customers to give us product because of the relationships. And so as you're building your startup model, whether you're a startup or like I said, whether you're buying a business, it's also a startup. I bought an 18-year-old business that literally I went through all the startup things. So whether any kind of way that you're running a business, like I said, the value creation part's really important to be super, super realistic about what your revenue buckets are, what your cost buckets are, just double those costs because there's unforeseen circumstances. And then look at the soft side, right? You have your tangible world of these tangible things. And then you have your intangible world of all these human things, of all these other things you have to do, of the people part, which is the secret sauce. How do you get a team to believe in you as a leader? How are you stern, but also caring? How do you get people? And that is the hardest part of our business world. And like I said, business, you have all these formulas, you can study macro and microeconomics to death. But at the end of the day, people, there's another lesson my dad taught me. People buy from people. People buy from people. It is so important. And I think as I've gotten older, I've learned I was really trusting at first. And so you have to be very, very careful, extremely careful. And again, you have to separate a lot of these things too. As much as it's important to build your relationships and let people in your lives, you also, I have a story. So I ran a brand when I was 26, like 20 years ago, when I worked at a $6 billion distributor in Chicago. I ran a $60 million line of private brand ink and toner cartridges. It was fascinating. And you have these old school kind of ways, vendors, and they take you golfing and you smoke cigars and drink scotch and blah, 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 which is awesome, which is great. I really enjoy that. But, you have to be very clear when you're growing and when you're maintaining your business. Very, very clear with your vendors. I would point blank tell them, you step a foot in my office, I'm like, I love you. But you step a foot in my office and I'm gonna have to have the right quality at the right price with the right the right business terms, accounts, payment terms, everything. And that's another point that I wanted to tell you guys, the beauty and the art of this world with business has to have win-wins. You have to have win-wins. You can be a master negotiator and you can win it all and the other side loses completely. And then you never know when you'll need that person. And you're short-sighted and you win in the short term, the long term, done. So you have to be very, very strategic about how you're handling your conversations with people, your relationships with people. It really, really is important for you to look to the long term. I know I've covered a lot of different subjects, but I wanted to see if anyone had any questions regarding any of the different facets that I talked about. Do you want me to I can keep telling stories all day, but no, yes, one question.
What was the most challenging part for you when you started your own business?
You mean with A&E or with my startup? A&E? Okay, so that's a very loaded question, and it's a very good question. The hardest part, I think I always really relied on accountants, and I used to have a whole accounting department. I used to have inside counsel when I worked at a $6 million distributor. And even though I learned from them, the biggest challenge was not being realistic about, like I said, the economic value creation, the actual finances. And so I bought a company that was supposed to be a turnkey business, but when you open the hood, when you peel the onion, when you look at the core, there's things that may not be right. So if you don't know your accounts receivable, the thing is your accounts receivable could look awesome, but when you look at the aging, if you have an issue with people not paying you for a long time, that's a huge problem. Accounts payable, if you're not managing your payments, all those core financial things that I should have attacked on day one. So I usually, when I run businesses, I call them my 30 days in office and my 60 days in office and then my 90 days in office. And I usually go for all these I used to be more of a dreamer, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna make this branding awesome. I'm going to rebrand A&E. We're gonna be the coolest thing in distribution. We're going to make distribution cool and the sales will come. Nope. No matter how cool you think you are, if you do not have those fundamental financial metrics, you cannot survive. Like I said, basics. Revenue, what are your revenue buckets? Costs, double them, because who knows what mistakes you're gonna do. Hopefully not that many. But really, the hardest part was not having someone and really being realistic that no one's gonna do it for you. You have to do it. You have to study your own income statement. You have to look at all your gross profit. You have to look at your EBITDA. You have to look at your net income. If you don't know what any of that means, go learn what it is. You have to. Don't be scared of an income statement. Balance sheets are a little different. Don't be scared of them either. But your income statement, and then you have your cash flow, which is a whole other world. But as much as you can learn and be hands-on with your finances, and like I said, go find someone. Go find someone that runs a business. Go find someone that's an expert. Have them, a lot of people, you'd be surprised, will show you. You know, they don't want a lot of people to know how they're doing, but there are mentors that will show you, here's the mistake I made here, this is how I did. But the fundamentals of finance, do not be scared. And like I said, there's so many cool books out there. I told Julia about Crossing the Chasm by Michael Urquhart. He is a fantastic author, strategic thinker. You get through these life cycles like in business, but with startups, it's like a smaller bell curve. Like, how do you cross over? How do you make it to scalability? Which is really, really hard. And also, I wanted to tell you, scalability also has different definitions. So what you think is scalable could be different from what you think is scalable. And it has to be what you want for your business. How you define the success. Because I can tell you, well, I can tell you, in the beginning, when I bought A&E, I'm like, I'm gonna pay down my debt in 5 years. I'm gonna grow by 5x. In 10, it's gonna be awesome. And oh my God, because of those fundamentals we're missing in the business, I had to literally stop, do no strategy work, and do fundamentals. Once you have that core and that engine running smoothly with the finances, then you can look at your strategic growth.
I know you mentioned that you had experience with a startup in San Francisco, and then you have had experience with having to buy a business and then pretty much making it profitable. I know that for those of you who don't know, like, she pretty much flipped this business around, like from the red to profitable. And so I guess my real question is for someone considering a startup or buying a business, which direction would you go? Because I know right now something's trending where more people are actually realizing buying a business is a better way to go because success rate is a little higher than starting something from scratch.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you with that, unless you, by some magic of God, you have some kind of unicorn idea. Like, how do you know, right? So, and that's the thing with startups. With startups, it doesn't necessarily have to be from scratch. You could still have mentors, and you still could not reinvent the wheel if you have an amazing product service. But look at the world where we are today, right? And one of the you don't need your MBA to read about all this stuff. If you don't know Porter's 5 forces, go read about Porter's 5 forces. If you don't know about the VRIO principle, go learn about VRIO. And the big thing about these core frameworks, again, something that I learned a lot about with McKinsey, is the VRIO. So my mistake, I'll tell you the story about my startup. The most valuable part of VRIO, which was from my strategy professor at Ohio State, I got my MBA from the Fisher College of Business, is the I. So VRIO, the I is inimitability. So what happened was, I was like, okay, I worked at this Fortune 500 company. The largest $6 billion distributor of office products. I learned so much. I had this awesome, awesome idea. I said, I'm going to revolutionize the world of office products. How you buy your office products? I got you. So I got my partner, was my vice president, my boss, and he took all this money out. I took money out. We're like, oh my God, we have the best idea. We're so smart. This is so awesome. And in San Francisco, you catch the bug, like the startup, the buzz, and we hired the best designers, web designers. So in the web world, back then it was like 2012, there were frameworks and they were very, very pushy. There's frameworks on how to search. You can't go against the frameworks. These are the frameworks. I said, no, I'm trying to revolutionize how people search. And I said, if you go to officemax.com, back then it was OfficeMax and Office Depot were not together. You go to officedepot.com, if you go to officemax.com, you go to staples.com, look at those websites. Try to find a mouse. There is no word as mouse. It's called a computer peripheral. Who in the hell would search that? I don't know. But I said, I'm going to make this awesome website. It's going to be a curated website. So I took all these cool things I learned from fashion, because I love fashion, I love beauty, makeup, that's my jam. Spas, awesome. So I said, I'm going to take all this cool stuff from the beauty industry and layer it onto office products. And I got 3 major design awards for the searchability that I created, not just text, but the visuals. So I took, when you go to those clothing brands and they have a little suit jacket and a pant, you click on it and it takes it to the product category. I did that all for office products. It was curated. So if you try to find a mouse on staples.com, you found 600 options. How the hell are you gonna find the mouse you want? If you went to my site, from 600, it was maybe 100, and they were organized. These are the trackball mice, these are the laser mice, these are the big mice, these are the little mice. It was awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. What happened? 6 months, Office Max copied my entire thing. Bye, gone, poof, right? I had this awesome idea. I got all these awards. Everyone thought I was so cool, and I couldn't scale. And there goes $1 million, bye-bye, done. So, I try to really tell people that have these awesome ideas, put your idea through all these models, through Porter's 5 forces. Are there barriers to entry? Can someone just come and copy you, even if you have a patent? My father had a patent for his Genius software, and he trained thousands of professionals at Microsoft on this economic value creation methodology. He helped Microsoft with all their patch management, corporate, enterprise level accounts, to help them close their accounts, their sales. And guess what Microsoft did? In maybe 5 years, they learned everything from my dad. They took his whole methodology and called it REJ, and then they have it. What's my dad gonna do to Microsoft, right? So you have to be really, really, really careful about that inimitability. What makes you unique? I was asking you have the sprays, but do you have something unique? Is it eco? Is it something different that is not available from other brands? And that's the hardest pill to swallow in the startup world, is being realistic and really seeing. Versus what I did with the A&E, you get all the fun of the startup, but your base, you have at least a core of something that has been in operations. But again, with game theory, you have to make sure this isn't something that is going to become obsolete. Hey, I just bought a cab and Uber launched. And then what? Yes, Vincent.
Extraordinary information. I have a question though around, because I know you to be one of the most resilient people that I know. You're going through a lot, but you just keep building, right? And I'm really, really, really passionate about and really thinking through, what are the core traits? When you say, okay, the thing that I lean on the most, even when things get super hard,
Yeah.
What trait or what core thing do you lean on the most that keeps you going, that helps you keep fighting, keep building, keep creating, keep moving forward?
Well, I think my core trait, I know this may sound really weird, but it's just money, people. It's, it's just money. And I think the biggest thing that keeps me going, the trait that that brings me joy is I love nature, I love people, and I've been hurt 3 of my employees robbed me. We almost went out of business because of a employee theft rate. That you can't, when it comes to business, I'm a Latina, right? I'm a very emotional person. I love to love. But when it comes to business, you have to really have a different hat on. And I think that the resilience when it comes to business is you have to understand that there's a way. Even if you go bankrupt, there is a way. You can lean on mentors. You can lean on people, like I said before, they want to help. And so obviously you want to try your hardest, you want to try your hardest not to be in these type of predicaments, but the core traits really is to think of future, think of it, obviously we need money to survive, but don't let money overtake you, because if you build a business, if you do something in a way where, like I said, the financial things on the core are right, it will grow. And if it's not, be realistic and move on and do something else. Take your losses. I mean, I made $1 million mistakes. And we have Becky Tolnay here who is in charge of Vistage. And so this group, Vistage, when I moved to Tallahassee, it's a group of CEOs. And as an owner of a business, of a startup, or whether you buy one, it's lonely. You can't always just tell people all your crap, right? Because then your mom's gonna be like, what? I thought you were doing awesome. Don't tell your mom, not just kidding. No, you need a support group. So one key trait, like I said, I used to be very much like a control freak, and I couldn't do that anymore. I had to let go and be able to trust. And so when I was going through these really horrible times, I have John Bell from Colony Bell in our group. We have Laura Johnson from Cotton Colors. I mean, we have these executives, these business owners that have had all these horrible things also happen to them, and they got me through it. And again, a lot of this, and now with the world of social media and mental health, and you see all these people that show themselves as successful, it's kind of like a relationship, like, Susie and Tom are always awesome at the party. You don't know what's happening behind closed doors, right? The same with a company. You really don't know what's happening behind closed doors, so I would say don't give up. Sometimes, you may feel a little deflated, like, oh, why is everyone so successful? A big thing also trait, don't compare. I think a lot of people, personally and professionally, they compare themselves to other businesses, they compare themselves to other people. Comparisons are good if you can pick out patterns and learn from them. They have their purpose, but as a person, as your own feeling and your soul, you have to maintain a sense of calmness so that you can get through all these things that will happen. And if you have support groups like that, all those friends, I can tell you, I called John Bell at like midnight and he answered. And I said, I don't know what to do. I said, we're gonna form a Tiger Team meeting and we're gonna think about options, we're gonna help you. So traits, open-minded, being realistic, trying to let go of the control and have the support group. And I know sometimes that was the hardest part for me. And yeah, those are the solid 3.
You mentioned that you took out an SBA loan. In that, because you're not going to be making so much money within the next few years or whatever, do you include a salary or like a living wage in that loan that you asked for? Or?
So we had a great question. What's your name? Jasmina had a great question for you guys that are watching now about the SBA loan process and if you pay yourself. And so I was in a really unique situation where my husband has a completely separate job. So we knew that whatever he was making, if I had the option of not paying myself, I could take that option. And so now I pay myself minimum just to have something because there's some rules for accounting because it was a ROBS transaction, which you take your 401k in order to have an asset purchase. So kind of a segue to your question is before you get an SBA loan, you have to really do a lot of research of do you want to be an S Corp, a C Corp, an LLC. There's all sorts of accounting implications. And that's another thing that I used to hate. I was like, accounting, I got a person for that. No, you have to know what the heck you're doing because accounting has two major parts. The every day-to-day bookkeeping, budgeting, accounting, and the strategic accounting. What really is your goal? What do you want to do with your company? And so some people want to make money right away, right? So that's a completely different model. And so you really have to ask your questions again. If you want to get an SBA loan out and you want to pay, you say, I need this much to survive and a little extra. I want to make this much a month. Sit down, get a really awesome accountant. They're worth it. Get a great strategic thinker accountant that can sit down with you and take a look at those things realistically and say, okay, if you want to pay yourself down, you have this much debt, you have to cover these costs, this is how much money you have to make, this is your gross profit you're gonna make on your product based on your industry or your service, and then these are all your expenses, so this is your earnings before your EBITDA, and then you have to look at your net income. Like, it is a lot of work, right? I manage a business that's 1 to 2% net income. That is crazy. I don't have room for error, but I'm a distributor, right? So I have a massive amount of transactions. But the inside theft ring that I had, that was really difficult because that was basically more than the profit. So now I'm trying to make up for that. So SBA loans, they sound really cool. I mean, they are really awesome, really cool. But be realistic, whether it's 5-year, 10-year, and think about your accounting and how you want to make your entity. Yes?
Is there insurance that you can buy to protect against those situations where an employee was steal or anything like
Yeah,
that?
so there is insurance. Again, I'm like, I got people to look things over. Nope. You look at it. You look at every single contract, everything you sign. I don't care, just go to the park, have a glass of wine, whatever. You have to read it. And so I shall remain nameless. This insurance company, they're the best in Tallahassee. I didn't know anyone in Tallahassee, right? So 6 years ago, I had no idea. It's like, no, they've been using this company for a long time. They're the best. Da, da, da. I'm like, okay, give me exactly how they had the previous owner. Boom, I want that. It's full coverage. They're like, yeah, you're fully covered. Do. Perfect. Sign. Theft ring, horribleness. Oh my God. Thank God that in 6 months, I discovered it because my financial statements didn't make sense and I saw them on camera how they were doing it, but it was really a genius idea. But, I mean, these guys were so creative, I wish they could put that for good instead of bad. But they're like, no problem, you're covered. We're gonna give me your inventory. I'm like, here's the inventory report. Here's everything. They took this in these SKUs. They took this in these SKUs. I have video evidence of them doing everything. I had everything. So I'm like, oh, thank God. The insurance company calls me and said, oh, these were your employees inside your warehouse. No one broke in. So you're not covered. Here's $15,000 for $300,000. Dead. I mean, if I didn't have, there was the distributor in Tampa, I told him what I said, I just got robbed, and he had been through robberies. He gave me $100,000 worth of cigars and gave me over 6 months to pay. To this day, I send his wife like a little crystal flower and like something, you know. And again, this is a relationship. He would have never given me $100,000 if he didn't know me, if he didn't believe in me, if he didn't believe that I would pay him. So insurance is a really, really tricky thing. You have to look at everything, whether you're buying a house, whether it's your rental apartment, whether anything, just read it all. Insurance is worth it. And you have to make sure you budget for whatever insurance that you need in your industry. But ask all the questions, please, because it was devastating to hear, nah, just kidding, JK, just kidding. But that was tough for me. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? We're good? 10 minutes? All right. Let's see. But yeah, you know, one thing, I'm really glad that all of you showed up. That means a lot to me, not only to me, I know to Julia and our community, but one thing being new to Tallahassee 6 years ago, I can tell you standing here, I don't feel new. So it has been really cool to be part of a community that's caring. And I listened in yesterday to see, you know, Eddie talk about and Corey talk about these different things. And I know we have Scott Baylock here, he's trying to do all these really cool things for our city. The things that are happening now with people trying to connect are really, really cool. And, you know, I texted my employees, like my management team today, because they're like, why are you know, we miss you, we want to see you. And I showed them the picture of me being, you know, a speaker. I said, we're a part of something big, you guys. I said, I know I've been doing a lot of community work. I'm the board treasurer for the Carney Center. I really love giving back. I'm on the board for Second Harvest. You know, food insecurity, homelessness, all these things are really not good in our community. So anything that we can do to help Tallahassee is going to be awesome. And like I said, we have all these really cool gems, like Scott, Becky, Vincent, I know is doing a lot of stuff. All these gems that are trying, you know, Julia had just met and asked me, trying to really connect. And I was glad to hear a lot of the points made yesterday. And how do we not reinvent the wheel and help each other and say, hey, I know you want to do this, but this is how I failed. These are my stories, and sharing those stories are so important. So I'm really glad to see that we have a really nice mix of people, and I'm sure it's different industries, but use those resources. I know yesterday they talked a lot about the FSU, the Jim Moran resources, the FAMU resources. We also have a lot of community resources for free. I had no idea. There's certain things I wish I knew 6 years ago that I could have taken advantage of. So you just being here means a lot that you really want to succeed in our community, and we want to keep you in our community because I think Tallahassee, it's the smallest town I've ever lived in, and I've never seen such enthusiasm with people trying to help each other. And really trying to be open-minded about the areas in our community that need help, and how can we not just throw money at it and give solutions that we think are their solutions, but really listen and say, hey, community X, what is happening? Why do you think there's what, you know, and listen to each other and try and come up with solutions together. So I'm really excited that that we decided to stay here, because we were gonna be kind of transient, but we're gonna stay in Tallahassee and watch it grow and be part of the community. So my husband might have a little 8-year-old too, and that's another thing. The vegetation, if you don't know Tall Timbers, it is awesome. Schedule a tour. It is super cool. You learn about the little birds and the vegetation. I mean, I never knew about the Red Hills. You know, you see some gas stations named Red Hills, but there's a meaning. There's red clay hills. I mean, we're sitting in a really unique spot we're not mid-South Florida, but then we're not Georgia, and we're really unique, a really unique community, and then to think we have all these different areas around us, like Monticello, Perry, Quincy, each one has their little gems, and they're growing. I see it on my routes. Even Georgia, Valdosta, we had to double our route because of the demand. That's how much that town is growing. So the growth is really exciting. I know yesterday I talked about the airport. I hope that has been a thing for people that, my husband and I, that fly internationally a lot. Hopefully that will start growing and we'll see that. But, the San Francisco startup lessons were really cool. If anyone ever wants to hear more crazy stories, I have a lot. But that was a really unique time in my life. And I also lived in Abu Dhabi, which is also really interesting, especially with the dynamics of women. I could give a whole talk about being a woman in distribution. I think I'm like one of 2 women distributors in the state of Florida. So, you have other things that you have to deal with, but if you stick to your core values, all that kind of just washes off and you don't take things personally. A lot of the things, I don't know if you guys read the Tallahassee Women magazine. I'm in the section for women who meet in business, and I talk about the cultural differences. Sometimes people really get offended, and I've had to go to gas stations and tell them, I'm sorry, I didn't say hi to you. I meant nothing, please, I would love to have your business. What can I do? And so when it comes from a cultural perspective, we also have to be open-minded and not take things personally. And that's, again, business is an art form. There's no special formula. It is super fun. You'll go through trials and tribulations like, we all do. But the more you can get mentors, especially in different industries, really cool. Because there's so many similarities in just core framework things that you should know.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you so much for being here, Anna.
Sure, absolutely.
And thank you all for being here. I helped Robert and Domi co-organize most of the events for this week. It's kind of a challenging week before the holidays to try to get a bunch of folks in the community to come out, but I love how so many of you have come out for Anna's event. We do encourage you to continue to share with everybody the upcoming scheduled events. Check out the schedule, domistation.org/TLH Startup Week. And I'm really thankful for all the sponsors and our venue partners to make this week happen. And it's really about making sure that everyone has the opportunity to connect in all kinds of, corners of our community, really. So that's why there's 13 tracks, 13 plus or 14, there's kind of overlap, but there's about 50 events that goes across all these industries so that we can pretty much collide. Robert's favorite word, collisions. Let's make more organic collisions happen throughout the week, and thanks again for coming.
brief introduction.
Oh, sure.
We have when you're ready, Deej. Welcome. Can you hear me? Yeah. That's cool too. Alright, that's what I can talk about. Welcome to Startup Week 2022. We're really excited to have you all here for this incredible event with over 50 events and 14 different tracks representing industries across our community. This is an incredible week for us. You can feel free to check out wstation.org/TLH Startup Week for all of the agenda. And if you're here in person, the agenda is on the QR card on everything tag. So I'm excited to have our guest speaker. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Garland, and just like to kind of know where all of you are. Where are you from?
I'm from South Korea.
Okay.
Originally from Wisconsin,
Okay. What part?
like Central, Oshkosh,
Yep.
Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Georgia.
Georgia.
Okay. South Florida. South Florida.
West Palm.
West Palm.
West Palm as well.
Okay. Atlanta. Atlanta. Okay, great. Well, as I mentioned earlier, my name is Kelly Garland, and currently I am a assistant professor at TCC, Tallahassee Community College. I teach business there, so I'm in the business industry and technology division. Prior to that, however, I worked for a destination marketing firm. In fact, I spent about 25 years almost working for a destination PR firm here in town. We were a very small business, female-owned business. And when I say destination marketing, what we did is we would promote travel destinations. That's why I asked where in Wisconsin you were from. Because we represented destinations throughout the country, primarily convention and visitor bureaus, state departments, and tourist development. We also represented individual properties and resorts. And during that time, when I was leading press tours, I was a glorified Sherpa, for lack of a better term. These clients would hire us and they would say, can you help get us positive editorial coverage, increase tourism to our areas? And so that's what we would do. And during that time, I had the opportunity to work alongside and witness a lot of small businesses around the country and really watch them flourish. They could be in the middle of nowhere, Texas, or in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, or in Nashville, Tennessee, or San Antonio, Texas, Nashville, I mean, you name it. But the common denominator with these small businesses is they made it work. They weren't hiring agencies like us. You know, we were part of a bigger machine. They made this work on their own. And they did it by being really nimble, very creative, but also very, very focused. What is my product? What is my service? What is my story? And how can that story connect with my target audience? And so some of the things that we're going to talk about today as startups is, you're going to be busy entrepreneurs and you're running all facets of your business. Where do you find time to squeeze marketing in? And that's a big thing that I heard from former clients as well as students. I have current students who have a side hustle, who are trying to make it, and they're thinking, how do I do this? I'm just trying to get my business off the ground. How can I at least focus on marketing? And the thing that I tell clients and students is marketing is like gas in your tank, your car. If you have gas, you can go places. If you have no gas, you're stuck. And you need to think about marketing through that same lens. Marketing is something that you're going to do 365 days of the year. With it, you can run, you can operate. Without it, you can cease to operate. I had a number of former clients when times got lean and they would say, well, we're going to need to cut our marketing. Oh my gosh, that's almost like want to do that because out of sight is out of mind. So what we're going to talk about are basic things such as what is a marketing plan and how to write one. And yes, an N1, if you're a startup and it's just you, I still encourage people to document their ideas. Take them from here and download them into a formal document because it's going to remind you as well as guide you why you exist and what you want to be doing. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about who is my target audience and how can I learn more about them. You don't need a $50,000 market research plan in order to be able to do that for a market research firm. We'll look at how you can creatively learn more about your target market and what they're into, how you can differentiate yourself from your competitors, as well as how you can promote your promote your business in a budget-friendly way. I'm going to share with you 4 different businesses and how they did it. These are very disparate, different types of businesses, startups, but how they were able to get their story out there, get their message out there without hiring a firm or a marketing agency. So let's just begin with, what is a marketing plan? Well, a marketing plan is not a thesis, it's not a dissertation, it doesn't have to be, this super long document. But what what a marketing plan does is it is a part of your business plan. And this marketing plan is going to detail or spell out who you are, what your product or service is, the price point at which you anticipate selling your product or service, the place where you're going to be selling your product or service, and then how you plan to promote that product or service. And that promotion mix can include things such as advertising. If you can't afford advertising, that's okay. You can do something like public relations, which is very budget friendly. You could also do other promotions to drive traffic, like specials or sales to drive traffic to your business. But your marketing plan is going to include your executive summary. It will also include a situation analysis, and we'll take a deeper dive into each of these. Your marketing strategy, these are the actual tactics that you're going to use on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. In addition to your budget, if you have a budget, if you don't have a budget, that's okay too. And then your controls. Who's going to implement this? If it's just you, that's okay. But you might also want to think about maybe getting an intern, especially if you are in a college or a university town. Take advantage of that. And then in your controls, you'll also talk about things such as performance measures. How do you know whether or not what you're doing is working? So in the marketing plan, as I mentioned, you're going to have this situation analysis. And what is a situation analysis? Well, think of a situation analysis like present tense. It's what's happening. It's what's going on in the economy. It's what's going on with trends. It's what's going on in your community or where you are doing business. What's going on with your competition. So you want to be able to describe that briefly because, again, you're documenting, you're codifying what is the current state of affairs with my business, my industry, and world. And then it will also include a SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats. Now, I'm not sure if you know or don't know, but I'll just, with strengths, weaknesses, you're looking internally at your business. What are our business's current strengths? What are our businesses or my business's current weaknesses? So you've got to look within. And then for your opportunities and threats, you're looking externally. So you're asking, what kind of opportunities are on the horizon? Is it maybe one of my competitors is going to close because they're getting ready to retire? That's an opportunity for me because I could take over some of their business. Or maybe there's a new technology that's on the horizon. Or maybe there's some other opportunity that's going, like a partnership that might open its doors. But you want to look externally for what are those opportunities. And then threats, again, you're looking externally. Maybe it's a new competitor that's going to be opening in your town or in your community, or a new piece of legislation or a law that could threaten how you do business. You just never know. But the thing is you want to take that panorama 365. And then in the the situation analysis, it also includes a competitive analysis where you want to document who are your current competitors. Who are they? What are they doing? What are they doing differently? How do you position yourself? And so it gives you, that situation analysis gives you that really nice state of the state, if you will, for the business. And what's nice too is over time, you can go back and look at your marketing plan like a journal. Oh yeah, this is what was going on, in 2022 or 2021, and this is how I handled it. So that's what's nice is you have that history there. Sorry. So then we get into, now that we know the state of the state, we've got that situation analysis, we can look at our marketing strategy. And our marketing strategy is where we're going to define my target audience. Who is my target customer? In a perfect world, what's their age? What's their income level? What are they into? What are they not into? What do they watch? What don't they watch? What do they read? What don't they read? What social media platforms do they use? What don't they use? You really want to try to understand your target customer as you possibly can. When you do that competitive analysis that I mentioned earlier, then you'll be able to develop your positioning statement. Your positioning statement essentially says, here's how we're going to be different. Yes, there are lots of nail salons in Tallahassee, right? It's a competitive landscape. But you can do something a little bit different than your competitor. Lots of restaurants, lots of burger places, barbecue joints. But what are you going to do that's just a little bit different than your competitor? Is it based on something like price, or maybe it's going to be based on your customer service, or maybe you're going to offer some kind of warranty that your competitors won't. But you want to be certain that that positioning statement is something that's going to differentiate you. And then your marketing mix elements are things, again, that are going to include your product, price, place, and promotion. And then your promotion methods is really where you get descriptive about if you're going to advertise where. And you can't just say in the newspaper, or on the radio, or in such and such trade publication. We want to know specifically which section of the paper or which month of this trade publication. You can find out all of that by going to the publication's website and looking at their media kits. Their media kits are, does everybody know what a media kit is? Okay. Media kit is what the publication will provide to potential advertisers, and it will give you a descriptive information about circulation, how many people subscribe to the publication, if you were going to buy an ad, how much it would cost, etc. So you want to get as much. The reason that I recommend that people, if they're going to buy ads, they be very judicious about it, is because you don't want to throw that money away. You want to make sure that you get the right eyeballs on those ads. Same thing with social media. There's no point in buying social media ads if on a certain platform if your audience is not there. For example, I'll say if I'm a home health care company, I'm not going to be buying ads on TikTok. That's not where my target audience is. They're not on TikTok. They're on a different platform, a different channel. And then also your promotion methods, if you want, will include things like sales promotion. If you have one, that could be a specific event. You could create an event. Like if you're a restaurant and it's National Burger Day, you could create a specific event for your business, taking advantage. It's National Burger Day. Come in and try our special National Burger Day burger. Get creative as you want to be. That's what's fun about promotion. And then Salesforce is also a part of your marketing mix. If you decide that you want to have a Salesforce. Fun fact or interesting fact about Salesforce is they are of these four in the promotion methods. Salesforce is the most costly because you got to pay to do this. You got to pay yourself. It's repeaters But since we're all going to be marketing on a budget, we're going to come up with really creative ways. We can use things like PR to our advantage. We can use promotions and special events to our advantage. And that's not going to break our bank or break our wallet. It can be fun, it can be really creative. And more importantly, we're going to make mistakes, but that's how we fine tune. And that's where we can learn and get better and every year learn what worked and learn what didn't work. You'll find that record keeping is going to be incredibly valuable to you as you're marketing your business. You want to know what went right, what went wrong. Let me put a pin on it and try to figure out why or why not, and what can I do differently. So you're, like Dr. Stephen Covey always says, we're sharpening the saw. Every year we want to sharpen the saw as we're marketing. Another piece to your marketing plan will also be your budget. If you have money to spend, this is where you define how much that's going to be so that you can put a cap on it. The nice thing about codifying or defining a budget is that it's kind of like a governor. You don't go over it. A lot of startups will just keep throwing money like Jell-O to the wall to see what sticks. As a startup, you may not have all that leeway or flexibility. So if you can, define what your max is going to be to implement that marketing strategy so that you have a realistic number and keeping things in check. Your controls, this section of your marketing plan really is just going to say who's responsible for what. If it's just you, that's great. But some people may have a staff person, a part-time person, staff person who can help you out. That's great too. If you've got a family member who's going to be helping you a little bit with your startup, outline what he or she is going to be doing. But if you're in a place like Tallahassee where you've got a couple of different colleges and universities, you can enlist an intern and tap into that resource, either through TCC or Florida State or FAMU. All three have internship programs, and you can decide what kind of student are you looking for. Is it a paid internship? Is it an unpaid internship? That's how I got my career started, was an internship. It was an unpaid 40-hour-a-week public relations internship when I was in Atlanta doing grad school. And a lot of people today will say, you took an unpaid internship? And I said, shoot, I did, because I needed the experience. They didn't need to pay me. I was getting paid through having that experience. And I really do believe that there are some students out there who are looking for that kind of experience as well, just to be able to put it on the resume. Especially if you say up front, you're very transparent. We're a startup, we've got a lean budget. And then the last part of your control section in the marketing plan, and this is an important one, but how are you going to measure the effectiveness of your program? How will you know if it's working or not? For some of the small businesses that I've had the opportunity to work with alongside over the years, it was things such as the phone. Did we notice our phone started ringing off the hook? That's an indication that something's happening. Did we notice that our website traffic all of a sudden is really picking up? Or sales, or inquiries, or I heard about you. Those are simple things that you can really pay attention to that will let you know if or if not your program is working. And again, you're going to keep looking at this over the years like a journal, and it's going to help you get smarter and smarter. So let's talk about target audience. How can I find out who my target audience is? And a lot of the businesses that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years would ask just a very simple question when somebody walked through the door or when somebody called. How'd you find out about us? It's a very simple question. But if you start to trend the responses that you get from your customers, that can be very telling. It can be very eye-opening. You want to know, how are folks hearing about me? Is it word of mouth? Is it a competitor recommended me? Is it that they heard about me on a website, or they found our website, or they heard about us through our Chamber of Commerce or our CVB? But you want to be able to keep track of how did you find out about me? And that's really important information. And then while you're having that conversation, you can also ask them, try to probe and find out what are they into, what are they not into, what parts of the store are they looking at, or what parts of the website are they spending time at, or where are you noticing a lot of sales, where are you not noticing a lot of sales? It can be super helpful. Where do they get their information? And then, what knowledge gaps do you have about your customers? And then where could you fill in those gaps? A lot of times it's just asking the customers over and over again. Because again, you want to become the expert on your customer as much as you possibly can. Imagine how much better and more effective you can be with your target audience than your competitors, because you know more. And then we want to probe further into how can I be different from my competitors? What is going to be my unique selling proposition? This may require you to go visit your competitors. And not just a one and done, but try to do it maybe a couple of times throughout the year, where you can just see what are they doing, what am I doing, and how can I differentiate myself. You can also have what is their unique selling proposition, how is yours different? Again, it can be based on variables like price or quality or your depth and breadth of product assortment or services that you offer, or whatever that's going to make you slightly different. That's going to help with your storytelling. And then you can create that perceptual map, which is just a visual map of where you are and where they are. And then you can when you look at your customer feedback, that's also going to help you understand how you're different from your competitors. Really, you're trying to get smarter and smarter every iteration or every year. And then how can you reach your target audience creatively? Well, you can take advantage of local resources, things such as your Chamber of Commerce, or Convention and Visitors Bureau, or networking groups. But this is where you want to infiltrate and just take advantage of those possibilities. And you can also try to make sure that using SEO to your advantage, search engine optimization. In essence, what that means is you're just making sure your website is updated so that it doesn't get stale, and then it can get lower with the Google search. You can also use an email list as well as PR opportunities. An experience audit, what I mean by that is if you have a website, what is it like? What is the experience like to shop on your store, on your website? Is it easy to navigate? Is it hard to navigate? And this is where you can enlist friends, volunteers to give you that honest, candid feedback. If you have a physical brick and mortar store for an experience audit, what is the ambiance of the place? What kind of vibe does it create? I'm going to subjected to their algorithm. So are we really reaching our target audience with social media? Maybe this week, but if they change the algorithm, not so much. So local resources, again, we're tapping in and partnering with our Chamber of Commerce, plugging in with them, making sure that they know our business exists, and therefore they can recommend our business. Same with the Convention and Visitor Bureau, and I'll show you examples of some businesses that were able to tap into that and to take advantage of some CBD opportunities. Again, you want to put yourself on their radar, because if you don't, then they're not going to really know you exist. So it's going to take a little bit of effort on your part. Networking groups, same thing, just get in there to try to let people know that you exist. They can refer your business, give you some business, and generate some favorable word of mouth, if you will. SEO just means that we're adjusting our website, fine-tuning our website in such a way that we will move up in the Google rank, if you will. And studies show that 93% of online experiences are beginning with a search engine. So what are we doing to make sure that we're sprinkling in keywords in our website so that if a client or a customer is searching, that we're going to hit it. I want to make sure that whatever they're searching for, I've got those words sprinkled through my website. And all that means is maybe once a quarter, a couple of times a year that we're going through and just freshening our site, if you will, and that can generate more traffic. So let's make it happen. I'm going to share with you 4 different small businesses, really small, and how they made it happen. And these are kind of the fun part. Wild Seed Farms is located in Fredericksburg, Texas. Does anybody know where Fredericksburg is? Okay. It is about 75 miles northwest of San Antonio and due west of Austin. This business was started by John Thomas, who graduated from Texas A&M University. His career was in seed harvesting, specifically turf seed. He lived outside of Houston, Texas. And have any of you ever been to Texas? And during the spring, during bluebonnet season? It's breathtaking. It's absolutely breathtaking. And these are just wildflowers that grow on the side of the road. And people get in their cars on Sunday afternoons or on the weekend and they just drive and drive and drive because they want to see the wildflowers. And Mr. Thomas, being the entrepreneur that he was, said, I sell sod, seed, but all these people are oohing and eyeing over wild seed. And I have a background in seed sowing. And I even have a little patent on a piece of equipment where I can harvest and extract this seed. So I'm going to get into this a little while. I'm just going to dabble in this wildflower business and see if it works. And so he started, and he's basically started the business with B2B customers. Who were his first customers? State highway departments of transportation, departments of highway transportation. He would sell custom seed mixes to Florida or North Carolina or the state of California. So anytime you're driving along an interstate and you see this profusion of gorgeous wildflowers, there was somebody behind the scenes who made that happen. It wasn't just the state of Florida. It was Mr. Thomas. He came up with these seed blends and was selling to businesses. But then he got the right idea of, what if I sell this to consumers? And they want to create their own seed mix that they can use at home. So he took a plot of land, about 100 acres. He started with 10 and then went to 100, and he put it on Highway 290 in the middle of nowhere. And this is what you would see, just acres and acres and acres of wild seed. And the cars would pull over and pull over soon enough, he built a retail store to go along with it. So he grew his business from 10 acres to 100 acres, selling 88 different varieties of seed. And he had no marketing department, no agency. He did this all himself. And the way that he did this is and he's in tiny Fredericksburg, Texas, which at that time had a population of about 6,000. And the way that he was able to get himself on the map was by working with his local convention and visitor bureau and letting them know, hey, we're here, we're open to the public, we have a retail facility, we also have a restaurant, would you ever want to partner on anything? At that time, Ernie Leffler, the director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, said, absolutely. We're actually going to bring some travel journalists to Fredericksburg. These travel journalists are going to be writing about what visitors can see and do. Would you be interested in giving these journalists a tour? That's all he had to do. Give them a tour. Cost him no money. And he also had incredible photos. He started taking advantage of email lists and creating newsletters as a result of that, and making himself completely accessible to media. So if a media or a journalist came in and just unannounced or off the street, he didn't say, no, I don't have time for you. He said, no, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. And that really catapulted his business. Here's an example, a local business, Divas and Devils House of Style. Earlier, I mentioned doing an experience analysis. And I said, just hold on, I'll show you. And now I want to show you. Michelle Torregrosa, the founder of Divas and Devils House of Style, started this business in 1996 as a fresh FSU college grad. At that time, the store was located on West Pensacola near Bagel Bagel, and it was in a strip mall. But this piece of property came open on North Monroe Street, North Monroe at 6th Avenue to be exact. And as she describes, I am not a walkable kind of place. You can't really, I mean, you could walk to me, but people have to seek me out. I'm kind of hard to get to. And so because of that, she wanted to create a destination. She understood her strengths and weaknesses. She also understood her opportunities and threats. And she said, a strength is I've got this corner spot with these fabulous windows. And I'm going to take advantage of this. And I'm going to really just deck out my windows and do these fabulous windows displays that take her days to complete. And then on top of that, on the inside, she said, we are a retail store, but I want it to feel like you're at home. And so she's plush couches in there, and if you want to have a glass of wine, you can, and you could spend hours there if you really wanted. She's got candles that are burning. She's got music that's playing. So you don't feel like you're in an anonymous type of store. You're really treated like you're a guest in someone's home. And so how could you do an experience analysis of your business and make it as customer friendly and warm and inviting as possible? And it's something she works on every day. You know, she's really every day she's examining how can we make this an even better, more vibrant experience, not only physically in the store, but also using our social media. Does it cost her a fortune? No. I mean, it does. I mean, it costs her a lot of mental capital, you know, because she's always thinking about how she can make the business better. Michelle also takes advantage of an internship program. So she does have interns from Florida State that she will use for a semester, and she assures them that they are going to have a resume builder like none other. She really trains them well, and then more importantly, she's able to help get them connections in larger market cities. She's worked in New York and things like She also has an ambassador program where she will partner with different girls, females here in Tallahassee, and they have an opportunity to wear her clothes, and it spreads that positive word of mouth. And then again, she's using a differentiation strategy, very similar to Mr. Thomas at Wild Seed Farms. How am I different from my competitors? What can I do that really is going to make me unique? Beaver's Kitchen. This is in Independence, Texas, which is in between Houston and Austin. This is a small little restaurant, and they serve breakfast and lunch. And they have become well known for their pies. They just sell comfort food. A lot of people do that. But they tapped into doing something really different. They're doing a lot of different homemade pies. They take advantage of seasonal offerings. They also took advantage of partnering with the local Convention and Visitors Bureau. They let the CBB know, hey, we exist. If you ever bring in groups of journalists, we would love to host them for a lunch, or if they want to come for a slice of pie, I'm delighted to comp them a slice of pie. And as a result of that, Alejandra Ray, who is the owner of Beaver's Kitchen, has been in publications around the state of Texas and beyond. And she's getting this favorable word of mouth. Did she take out an ad? This was the only thing she paid, and I'm using air quotes here, the only thing that she paid was just giving out a slice of pie to Melissa Gaskill, who was the journalist who wrote this article. So in exchange, she got that great article, which is worth tens of thousands of dollars, and lots of eyeballs saw it. Tens of thousands more eyeballs were able to see this, and that helped put her on the map. And again, it's just something, didn't cost her a whole lot of money, but again, she had to make herself available. And she did it again with consistent, focused product offering, just like we saw with Do This a Devils, a very focused product offering or differentiation strategy, just like we saw with Wild Seed Farms. They knew who they are, or they know who they are, they know who they aren't. And that's very, very important. They aren't trying to be all things to all people. They know specifically and precisely who they're targeting and how to connect with that audience. Last but not least, one of my favorites. This is a former student of mine, Jalen Kalo. Jalen is still here at TCC, and he was in my marketing class about a year and a half ago. And I'll never forget, Jalen is from Pensacola, and he came up to me after, I think maybe the first or second day, and he said, Professor Garland, I've got a business. And I said, okay, well, tell me more about it. And he said, well, I'm into fashion. I said, okay, tell me more about it. Can you be more specific? He said, well, and he bought a hoodie. And he said, this is what I do, but I want to be everywhere. And I said, well, be careful what you wish for, because right now you're just one person. And if you become an overnight success, where are you going to get all this help to fulfill these orders? And he said, oh, you're right, I don't know, I never really thought about that. And he said, well, come after class next week and let's start looking at what you're doing and what you can maybe do differently. And he does this all himself, everything. And one of the things that we came up with was a social media editorial calendar, because he was just posting whenever, wherever, and there was no real rhythm and flow or rhyme or reason to it. And so it was throwing customers off. And so the challenge for him was to come up with a campaign where I said, I want you to go home and I want you to look at the month of October. I said, okay. And I said, you know what your schedule's like. You know what classes you're taking. You know when you've got free time. You know when you don't have free time. So I want you to look at a calendar and just literally map out Monday, I'm going to do this. Or Wednesday, I'm going to do that. And Friday, I'm going to do this. And I said, just let the creativity flow, but you want to give some structure to your campaign so that it's got some rhythm. And he said, okay, I can do that. So I said, let's check back in 2 weeks. And so he did, and I said, how's it working for you? And he goes, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm no longer up at night worried because I've got it all on my calendar. And it just tells me what to do. And I feel like I'm in control. And I said, exactly. And that's really what a marketing plan is going to help you do. You spend time on the front end, but then it reminds you and it tells you what to do. Because you're going to be running and gunning and with your business, you're going to be so busy with every single day, your employees and operations this and inventory that. But if you've got this marketing plan that reminds you, this is who I am, this is what I said I was going to do, this is how much I said I was going to spend in Nomos, this is who's going to do it, and this is what I'm going to post and when I'm going to post it, and then, oh, I've got this press tour that's coming through, or, oh, then I've got this leads group that I'm going to be meeting with. It's just like a recipe. You follow it, and voila. So I asked Jalen, we'll still meet, we'll have lunch, we'll meet at the Chick-fil-A on Tennessee about twice a semester, just to check in and see how he's doing. And right now he's really focused on some campaigns. Like over the summer, he wanted to experiment with a campaign. He was going to be in Richmond, and I said, this is a great time to try it, see what works, but more importantly, see what doesn't work, because we learn more from our failures. And then he's also experimenting with an ambassador program and how to maybe start that up. But when I checked with him this week earlier, he said, I'm still planning my posts and marketing very judiciously. I thought that was so smart of him to use that word, judiciously. Because as a startup, oftentimes we just think, spray and pray. I just want to get my name out there. It doesn't matter to who walks through the door, just as long as I get the sale. But we want to be more judicious about our marketing and smart and savvy. And I think if anything, that's the common denominator, is we know our why. We understand our why. We also understand our who we're going after, but more importantly, who we're not going after. And sometimes those people can make our lives miserable. So we want to know our why. We want to know our product or service that we're offering. We want to know our target customer, what makes them rise and shine and get out of bed and come through our doors or go to our website. We want to use our marketing plan continually as a guide. And this is something that we can check in on every year, update every year, check in on every year to make sure that it is navigating us in the right direction. And this is going to help us discern what works for us and what doesn't work for us. We're going to get burned. As small business owners, that's just a fact of life, but we want to get smarter along the way. We also want to remember how important it is to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. There's room for everyone. And how are we going to differentiate ourselves? Is it going to be on our product, our service, our price? Is it going to be on quality or selection? And then be nimble and be very curious. I wonder what would happen, for example, going back to Mr. Thomas. He said, got this retail space, and he noticed, he was really curious. He said, I noticed that I've got a lot of husbands brides are taking photos, or the women are out, you know, in the retail store. And one year he said, I'm gonna make a brew room, like a tap room, so that the men have something that they can do, while the women are off doing their thing. Well, lo and behold, he builds a brew bonnet tap room, and he's featuring local Texas beer like Shinerbach, etc. And now the men all want to go. You want to go to Wild Sea Farms? Sure, I'll drive you out there, because they've got something. Then another, speaking of customer focus, started noticing people were asking, can we do weddings at your place? And at first you said, no. And then the calls and the inquiries kept coming in. And he went, light bulb. Okay, people really are interested in us as a wedding venue. I could take a piece or a parcel of this property and make it an event space. And then we could host weddings. He's doing that now. So listen to your customers, because they can be your greatest source of innovation and ideas. And lastly, customer trust is everything. If they trust you implicitly, they'll come back to you again and again and again. What questions can I help y'all with? Yeah.
So, I noticed most of this has focused on direct consumer marketing. How does the paradigm shift whenever you are more focused towards business to business? Or is it basically the same, just your business customers are now in this case, end users?
Absolutely. Yeah, you want to list, your business customer is your customer. And so you will really tune into what are the trends happening with them? What are they ordering? What are they not ordering? And get feedback. What's working for them? What's not working for them? Where do they see things going? They're going to tell you, I mean, you will know certainly what are some trends that are coming down the pipe, but they will too. And so share information as much as you possibly can, and that's going to, by getting information from your business customers, that's going to help you get smarter along the way and to be able to anticipate what their needs are.
How do you get more information about getting interns from the colleges?
Great question. So for TCC, FSU, FAMU, they have internship programs. You can Google them, and you can they've got websites where you can contact and they're always looking for local employers. So you'll contact their office, speak with a representative, let them know more about your business. They typically have an application process that you would fill out and submit so that they can learn more specifically about the type of business and industry that you're in and the type of internships that you're looking for, so that it's a match. But just contacting them directly and letting them know you exist.
So we look up the college and then type in internship, or
You would just do FSU internship. Well, you can actually do both. University has an internship program, and some of the individual colleges also do interns.
I would start with career centers.
And yeah, the career
Instead of
centers.
doing as a student looking.
so like type in TCC Career Center?
Yeah.
And
And then contact their office and let them know that you're a local business, that you are looking for interns. What are you gonna add?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that I've gotten great interns from CCI's career, Communication College of Communication and Information. They've been great, social media, communications related to roles. And I've also got some TCCs through some of them business career fairs. But if you want to wait for the career fair, because I know they're not always often, and so go to the career centers instead, and then get in contact with people who organize these things.
And we would also, when I was with the agency, time for us to get full-time staff. You know, we try them out, they try us out, see if it was gonna be a good fit, and if they wanted to stay in Tallahassee, which we don't. You know, and that's the challenge, is getting them to, you know, wanna stay in Tallahassee, but yeah, it's a great resource to tap into. Yeah, there's
So I think we would be interested in doing internships for students. I hire a lot of students and hope that they'll stay with me for the 4 years that
Mm-hmm.
they're here.
But yeah, the universities, the colleges are always looking for new employers to host interns.
That's what your business is.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Battery Plus,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we would love to have like an outside sales rep, like an internship for an outside sales rep.
It also be getting more specific, not just wanting a retail clerk to stand there and get things over the counter, but get a little more specialized. It also you may draw a higher quality person. Oh yeah, sales. I want to do sales. There's, not a lot of internships specifically let you work in sales.
Or is there like, I'm not sure, you know, like what they're teaching in college or whatever, like the new term from fancy where they just calling a salesperson is business development.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
You
that's exactly.
know,
Yeah.
one way to kind of make it more glamorous to younger folks, or outreach or something like that. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, or professional sales.
Professional.
Yeah.
Or look at it, it's different quality you have. If you have a problem with recycling them, if you try to find somebody, does an internship out there, or somebody who can really help you recycle, they can get a bunch of old.
They're definitely looking for I mean, I have a college kid, she's not here, she's in Gainesville, but she is in sales, and professional sales, and she's got a sales internship with an insurance company this summer, so, it's letting the faculty know you're here and you're looking, and a lot of times, even with the faculty members, you can come up and design an internship program that works best for you and best for the student, so that it's a win-win.
It's hopefully like all the days where internships are, 40, 50 hours of chasing coffee and.
Because we would love to have somebody that's more geared in the marketing field. Because we hire a lot of the college students that we hire are more tech oriented because we fix a lot of cell phones and we do a lot of technical work with batteries and the things that, if we have somebody who's in marketing that had an interest in technology because it would be selling
Mm-hmm.
lighting or technology, offering items to businesses and things.
Yeah, I think it's really tapping into your local resources as much as you can, and just letting them know you exist and you want to plug into some of this local talent. Not local talent can be so valuable. Well, I certainly hope that this was helpful in giving you some ideas on how you can market and position yourself without having to break the bank. And more importantly, not tearing your hair out and developing an ulcer at the same time. It's Rome wasn't built in a day. You want to be patient and come up with a plan that you can work 365 days of the year. Maybe it's an hour here, an hour there, but you don't have to do it all, 8 hours a day every day. It's just you're proactively and incrementally making these steps to generate more awareness about your company. And I neglected to mention that, with marketing, it's about not only generating awareness, but you've got to persuade as well as remind. And so that's what I mean by you never want to take your foot off the gas pedal, because, yeah, you can generate awareness, but that's half the battle. got to remind people that we're still out there, because out of sight can equate in some people's minds to out of mind.
What would you say are some of the more effective survey tools available right now?
Ooh, okay. So, Survey Monkey. I mean, a lot of people, we all get surveys.
Yeah,
You
getting
know-
someone to actually do it and then using that as a measurement for, right.
I'm going to answer the question with a question. What is it that you really want to know from your customers? And then, reverse engineer into it and say, okay, is it quantitative data that I want to know? Is it qualitative data that I really want to know? I don't want to deploy a survey if it's not going to give me the information that is going to be really valid or valuable to me. So if it's qualitative information that I want to know, make just informal conversations with my customers and then I trend that feedback. Notice what you notice. If it's quantitative, then yes, you can, ask X number of respondents. But oftentimes I find that just asking people at random, what do you think about X, what do you think about Y, that gives me good information. You could also try a focus group. But again, it depends on what are you really looking at trying to get.
And to keep it short.
And keep it short.
And it's
The
better to
shorter the better.
It's better to say, thank you, please, we would like your feedback and leave a blank and let them write you something versus anything else. And find a way to say thank you, but not in a big way, like, oh, you get $5 off a hamburger or whatever the deal is like that. But finding a way to say thanks, but not even just right away, maybe wait 24 hours or 48 hours and then send the thank you, is what's you're reminding them, but you're also, letting it linger that they took the, reminding them in a positive way that they took the time to
What
respond.
kind of industry or business are you in?
So, well, it hasn't even launched
Okay.
fully yet, and that's why we're kind of in that focus group beginning stages of, it would be a nonprofit, but it'd be in hospitality. It's basically having a cafe that is fully staffed by intellectual disabilities. So it's the teaching room and workshop helping these individuals develop life skills
Mhm.
and then putting them to work in a training program and then being able to send them out into the community to then work elsewhere. So it's definitely staged, but we want to survey the parents of these young adults with disabilities. Would you be willing to allow the person you are guardian over to participate in something like this? And it's also going to the restaurants and saying, would you be willing to contribute to something like this? And then finally, the customers, would you dine at a place like this? So trying to navigate building that business plan through people's feedback.
First off, know the parents, what does it take to make this work?
Yeah.
Without the support of who's going to drive them or having that support of home instead of the water. 2, go to the restaurants. What do you need to have in the server? And if they come in with there's a safety certificate or whatever that a lot of places require, finding out what that is that enough? Is that enough to make them comfortable? What kind of internships could these people work into before they're asked to hire them outside of the cafe or whatever? And I would try to find some special ed teachers who would be willing to possibly help out, or just somebody who just generally works in that area already, so they're already used to job training. And I know there's something here in town like Goodwill and things like that. So there are possibilities out there. But yeah, go.
And as far as what I noticed that people seem to have a quick response to are LinkedIn polls or polls online on Facebook or Instagram, because people are just more engaged with, oh, this person voted, or the algorithm kind of respects that type of feature, and then also you get all that feedback and everybody wants to share their opinions and comments, so you might actually get somebody who can improve that.
Thank you, I understand that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want like a yes or no or a range.
Right.
Just keep it really simple and leave places for people others.
Surveys that just
Or look at the surveys, go, oh, this person really engaged, that'll be fun.
That's so true, and you also need to think about, am I looking for however many people, but if there's some sensitive information that people might not be willing to share in a survey, how could you get that information? And typically that's gonna happen more with a
of it might be finding your fan base first. People seem really into the idea.
You're there.
And buy it,
You're now.
you're there now.
Yeah.
So you really want to buy that for everything it's worth.
Yeah, we're definitely, like, we're approaching it with, small group interest meetings, and trying to figure out where people's niches are and where their interest really lies, and then tapping into that talent, building the board, of course, is a big part of it. And then, we're finding the space, it's all, like, all of them, all of the phases are kind of, just beginning. But one of those parts that we really want to know is, we see this working in other cities across the country, which we're also using as, our background. We're visiting those sites, or we're talking to those executive directors and business owners. But we want to find out, like, is this a good fit in Tallahassee? Because it is a very sensitive population. And in a society where we're very driven by immediate gratification, because intellectual disabilities by nature is slow, we don't want to launch this grand idea and then have these sensitive people feel like failures, and we don't want the business to just be too slow for people's needs, that kind of thing.
Well, it sounds like you're going about it in a very thoughtful, smart way. When you mentioned that you're talking to startups that are in other communities, it reminds me of Sally Bradshaw, Midtown Reader. She took a whole year to do nothing but research, where she researched small independent bookstores around the Southeast to figure out what worked, what didn't work, how are you marketing, and was able to take all of that information and drill it down into something that would work here, in Tallahassee. So I love that you're doing that, those research trips. Very effective.
You could also try to get local people to commit to go eating there maybe once a week, once a month. Get the parents to say, yeah, I'll do that once a week, sure. Because once again, you can build that customer base with people who are already familiar, but also then try to find the local people who will, share about it on Facebook or whatever, that kind of thing. And
Well, let's give Kelly a form.
absolutely.
I wanted to thank Kelly for being here today and speaking for us for Startup Week Tallahassee. I am Julia Holly. If I didn't mention that here, I helped organize some of the events during the week. And what I love about this event is that I get to meet people like Kelly for the first time. I never knew that she existed. You get opportunities to really meet people that you never knew is actually here in Tallahassee. And so Robert's buzzwords and his favorite thing to say is organic collisions. And it really is happening. It's only been 2 days, and I've met so many amazing people. And I hope to continue to see more and more folks in the next coming days. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.